Okay, so learning objective 6 is called bank runs and bank solvency. So what we're going to look at here is one of the consequences of the fractional reserve banking system. Now, this system has a lot of advantages in that there's a lot more funding available for credit in our credit market, which has an important implication for what the economy is able to accomplish. So that really helps with economic growth, among other things. The downside to that is that it is somewhat fragile or potentially can be fragile, and that's the subject of learning objective 6. Now, we said at the beginning, if everybody comes and asks for their deposits in cash, the bank isn't going to be able to handle that, and what can they do? And that is effectively the nature of a bank run. So what is a bank run, and how does a bank run work? A bank run works exactly like this. So some people become nervous about the bank. Specifically, they think the bank may go under or close. For good. Right? So we'll understand how a bank could become what we say insolvent, which would cause them to potentially have to close or shut down. And so a group of people becomes nervous that the bank is going to shut down or not be able to operate anymore. And so what they want to do then is to say, well, I'm going to take my money out of the bank now. So this group of people goes to the bank, asks for deposits in cash or to transfer them to another bank, right? So I'm going to close my account at the bank. Now, if enough people do this, the bank is going to start to run short on cash. They only have a fraction, typically 10% of their deposits on hand as cash. So if more than 10% of the deposits come at the same time to ask for cash, the bank can't do that. So the bank starts to run short on cash. This makes people more nervous. They're going to ask for deposits. And as this accumulates and accumulates, we've developed what we call a bank run, which is everyone shows up to the bank at roughly the same time and asks for their deposits back in cash, which the bank is then unable to accommodate. And so the bank starts trying to sell its assets and do what it can to raise cash to accommodate these requests, but it often would fall short in a bank run. And this sort of becomes what we say a self-fulfilling prophecy. People were nervous about the bank failing. Everybody came to get their cash out, and in fact, the bank failed. So banks start selling assets, right? So they can start auctioning off their property or selling their property, closing branches and selling it, but that all takes time. It isn't going to get the cash available soon enough. And remember, a lot of their assets are tied up in loans. So if the bank has taken your deposits and turned them into a mortgage that's got a 30-year maturity or is due in 30 years or paid over 30 years, they can't all of a sudden say in that agreement, I want you to pay the rest of your mortgage immediately. And so a big chunk of assets aren't what we say liquid. The bank can't convert them to cash immediately. And so the bank is simply in trouble here. And so that is exactly a bank run. And that can potentially cause some problems for banks. So in our next segment here, we'll take a look at what causes this, what would cause people to become nervous about a bank, and try to think of some examples of when that has happened in more recent history and how that could potentially happen over the next several months during this coronavirus pandemic.